Mm. Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be going over all of the official changes for Final Fantasy XIV's next expansion, Stormblood, specifically the changes to the jobs. Now this information was absent from the preliminary and full release patch notes, which came out like 12 hours apart from each other. I haven't even looked at the full release ones to see what's really different about those yet. But basically, these are all the confirmed changes for the early access period. We don't know if they have any other changes planned for 2 weeks from now for the Savage releases, but they said they'd be trying to update it based on feedback pretty quickly. So provide your feedback, because a lot of the stuff here did remain the same from what we saw at the media tour. So I'll see if I can find any of the major differences here, and we'll get through this video as quick as possible. So looking at Paladin real quick, all the changes are officially listed on the right hand side. In fact, I should probably reorient this a little bit, so there you go. For example, potency increases on some of the skills. You can see a lot of the Paladin skills saw a lot of change. Fight or Flight was buffed, potency on Fast Blade was buffed, potency on Savage Blade was buffed, the enmity from Savage Blade was increased. Flash is now exclusive to Gladiator and Paladin. Riot Blade had its potency increased. Shield Lob had its enmity increased. Constant increases for Paladin. If that doesn't say something about changes from 3.0 to 4.0, I don't know what does. Rage of Halone had its strength reduction removed, but it now has a combo potency buff. Pretty much everything enmity related got enmity buffs, and Paladin saw a lot of potency increases across the board. Shield Oath is now level 30. That's something also from the media tour that was definitely appreciated. Sword Oath now being 35 as opposed to where Sword Oath was Shield Oath was before at 40. And Cover is now your level 40 job quest. So all of those have officially been moved around. Spirits Within had its silence removed. Total Eclipse, new AoE action they get. Level 46, doesn't generate enmity, it's just really for doing AoE damage. Flash is still the majority of your enmity, but I know a lot of people just go straight to using that other AoE as soon as they get it. Don't forget, blocking now works from all directions and on magical attacks, so Sheltron works on magical attacks as well. It only has a 5-second recast, but will cost 50 Oath Gauge. So a lot of this stuff is actually pretty much all exactly the same from the media tour. This is more information for people who didn't get it. There are some slight changes here that I'm probably missing here and there, and there's a lot of jobs to go over, so we can't really cover everything in too specific a detail, or this video will be as long as the other one. More potency increases, cast time reductions for Clemency. They're new actions which are as stellar as I remember them being. I'm a big fan of a lot of Paladin's new actions that they got, especially Passage of Arms and Holy Spirit. I think those are going to be a lot of fun. Intervention also being quite strong. And the big thing with Holy Spirit, I don't remember this. Shield Oath bonus increases Oath Gauge by 20. So the one thing I don't want to be in Shield Oath for, and they're trying to encourage me to do it in Shield Oath, I guess while you're main tanking though, when you get to Requiescat, it's going to be interesting. I'm going to let the tanks do the math and talk about that, or I'm going to sound like an idiot trying to do it, but I find it interesting that Holy Spirit specifically has that bonus, because I mean, when you're tanking, it just means that that's a pretty significant increase if you're using Holy Spirit fairly frequently. So, and then with Requiescat, there's a lot of gauge to be had when in Shield Oath. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Paladins end up min-maxing all of that, because there's a lot of interesting information. All the cross-roll skills have ultimately remained the same, and then these are the same traits that we pretty much covered from the media tour part. Warrior, we're going to move into them next. You're going to see quite a few changes here. You can see that anything that gave Abandoned Stacks or Wrath Stacks, because those mechanics are gone now and it's been replaced with the job gauge, don't have to worry about that. All the enmity increases, all the tanks pretty much saw enmity increases for their enmity combos, which should be good because it should mean you have to do less of them to get aggro to then go over to your DPS combos, which should be the more satisfying gameplay amount. Berserk, all the changes that we went over from the media tour are still present, including no longer pacified, lower attack power bonuses, and lower recast times. But you get it at level 6 now. So Berserk, I just imagine a new player like Berserk overpowering in like the first dungeon and like says Tasha. That's got to be satisfying. I think that is actually a pretty nice change in terms of satisfying early game, because that's pretty cool to have at level 6 to have Berserk. It's a pretty satisfying ability to have. I think matches Fight or Flight, which you get pretty early too. All this other stuff, Maim had its effect switched with Storm's Eye, so just keep that in mind. Maim's effect is now the slashing debuff, and Storm's Eye is now the old Maim buff. So Thrill of Battle, you get a little bit later, which is kind of strange to do. Butcher's Block, Defiance, what's it called? They lowered the amount of damage loss that you get from Defiance. It's only 20% for Defiance now, as opposed to the 25% that it was before. So it's a slight, you know, buff in terms of your in Defiance DPS whenever you're actually doing that. You also saw potency increases for a few things. Inner Beast saw a potency increase. Absorbs a portion of damage dealt as HP. I don't know that I like that wording. I liked 100% of your damage dealt as HP. It was a lot clearer because you always knew exactly how much you were going to be getting, but it does more damage now, so that should be a welcome change. Storm's Path also has, you know, it still absorbs a portion of damage dealt as HP. Still, again, not a fan of removing the clear part of it and making it more obscure. So that is what it is. But it lost its major aspect. This is, again, all information that we got from the Media Tour. Mostly looking for things that I did not recognize from the Media Tour, as this is my first time looking through a lot of the information here. There's the Storm's Eye change, which is now also a 30-second duration, by the way. So that's pretty nice. Infuriate no longer grants infuriated status. That's just the change from before. Just grants you 50 beast gauge. Banned effects have been replaced with beast gauge effects, which we went over in the Media Tour video as well. A lot of this stuff actually remained unchanged. You know, I guess I'm just kind of surprised as I'm reading through this and producing this video, because I thought we'd see more changes, but I guess I'm looking at some of the other jobs. But I'm wondering if they were changes that they decided to make based on feedback so late that they had to test them and push them out for 4.01 or 4.05, which is something I wouldn't be surprised to see them do at all. And honestly, I'm expecting them to, especially with some of the other actions that we're going to be getting into here. They made some knee-jerk reactions, especially with White Mage, but even those, I found myself, that's one of the few jobs I managed to look at here. I was not too satisfied with what I ultimately saw. Unleash having its potency decreased. No. I guess just because of their new AoE weapon skill as well, they decided to do that. Required to get Siphon Strike at level 10 instead of 12 at least. Ooh. The potency for Dark Arts, what's it called? The effect MP Restoration now increases while under the effect of Grit. They're trying to... They really want you in Grit now, don't they? It's kind of like the Holy Spirit Shield Oath bonus as well, and some of the additions to Defiance. I guess what they're ultimately trying to do, they said the goal for a lot of these job changes was to bring up the skill floor so that somebody performing at, like, not what's considered the community's, you know, highest amount of effort would still perform better, while the ceiling would still remain quite high for a lot of people. And it seems like a lot of these changes are geared towards that in particular, is trying to get the people that want to stay in their tank stance all the time to get a bit more out of their job so they have a few more tools. Obviously, people who are min-maxing the job will have their own opinions on it and will have their own recommendations for how you should go about dealing with gauge switches and stuff like that, especially for the tanks. I'll let them be the ones to cover that, like I said earlier, because I'm not the expert on it and I haven't done the math on it. Blood Weapon having its effect changed where it gives you the blood gauge now for any physical attack that lands is pretty sweet, and then extending the Blood Weapon is still going to be a big thing as well. What's it called? And that can't be used while under Grit. So if you are someone who's not under Grit, your Blood Weapon usage is going to get a lot more interesting now, especially for the sheer amount of a blood gauge that you're going to be getting. Especially as an off tank, it's going to be pretty sweet. Dark Side no longer cost MP and it had its damage buff increase. These, again, all changes looking to bring the floor up, without a doubt. The effect of increased blood gauge by 1 immediately and another 4 over time. Oh, that's blood price. It'll just give you 1 immediately and then 4 over time. Not even per hit, just over time, which is an interesting way of going about using blood price. However, now it can only be used under Grit. I'm sorry, Dark Knights. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And Scourge is gone, as my chat is pointing out right now. Scourge. Where did you go, Scourge? So many potencies. Yeah, Soul Eater having its potencies brought up to 420. No one needs that joke to happen right now. And then, of course, the blood gauge increase. Dark Arts combo reduced on Dark Passenger. Whatever. For the Dark Passenger just saw nerfs literally across the board. It just had potencies brought down completely, and then MP cost is increased. All right, Dark Passenger's that important, I suppose. Let's see. Reduce cast time for Dark Arts to 2 seconds, so you can use it more frequently. I saw some people bringing up something interesting. This is something I saw from the more professional Dark Knights, and I'll just reiterate what I've heard here. a lot of this stuff is unchanged. For anyone looking for that trick attack effect on Soul Survivor, PvP related. And yes, all the PvP skills are in this job guide too. I think I'll die if I try to do all of those as well, though. So somebody pointed out that Blackest Night, when I initially saw this, because it increases the blood gauge specifically when the shield is broken, a lot of people immediately thought that getting it to, you know, generate all that blood gauge would make it something that you would use pretty much every time it's available. I saw some Dark Knights discussing that the cost on its, the MP cost on it, which I'm not seeing. Is there even a list of MP costs anywhere here? I don't know, I would just like to see if it does that at all. I saw some Dark Knights talking about saving MP cost on not using Blackest Night and sticking an extra Dark Arts. So I'm just gonna, MP cost 2,400. Getting that from my chat right here. Thank you. They were discussing whether or not it was worth using that versus Dark Arts. I saw a lot of them saying it was just worth it to use another Dark Arts as opposed to burning the MP on this for extra gauge. So we will just have to see. I don't see anything here, but I mean, technically nothing is showing TP or MP costs unless they change the cost. So that's, to be fair. I feel like this information could be a little bit clearer in a sense. Ooh, and then oh man. So okay, let me start with the not white mage healers. So Essential Dignity having its cooldown brought down. It also had its effect changed. Well, it says potency increases the lower target's HP. I was actually a fan of it just doubling under 50%, but I wonder if they just kept the old effect and decided to undo that change from before. I was actually a bigger fan of the clear double potency under 50% versus, you know, it's scaling down below. Maybe it's just because of the way it's worded. Maybe the change is there on the back end, but I'm just going to leave that as is. For the most part, again, Mediator-wise, we didn't see much changes. I know Earthly Star, we saw an updated tooltip for that, and that's a lot more clear in terms of the potencies. I know Earthly Star had its potencies brought down from when I played it at the Mediator, where the full power Earthly Star was 900 potency on the heal. We could probably move down to that. I also reduced the shielding here from the Mediator. This was a 300% shield. I still think it's crazy that this has a 250% shield. I still think that's crazy. The 300% was crazy. That to me is still crazy, just because, look, even erects a magic barrier for 130% of the HP restored and then 250. Like, I get that the MP cost was brought up, so they brought up the effect as well. It's just, I don't know. I guess I'll just have to get used to it in game, because seeing a number like that and then just thinking of Scholar is just, it blows my mind. I got to see the MP costs and how it was brought up and how it ends up scaling and all that stuff. Expect to no longer be canceled to initiate the cooldown timer. Ooh, feels bad, man. Where else do we got here? Sinistry, effect for spell page. Oh, no. 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 Well, I guess because of the cross-roll skills, they got rid of Sinistry's super OP effect, where it just gave you a free Divine Seal, pretty much, for using Sinistry. So, reasonable, I feel, with the cross-roll skill. Would have been really unfair if they got to keep that after White Mage lost Divine Seal as a whole. What else do we have here? Malefic 2 at its potency reduced and its MP cost reduced. Okay, I guess that's just because there's only one. You can't do Malefic 2 or 1 anymore. Unchanged. Earthly Star, yes, this is 720. This was 900 when I played it at the Mediator. So it's good to see that had a slight potency nerf, because people were really concerned about that efficiency versus Assize. Despite Assize having a lot of other power behind it, the full 300 potency on both ends, or the full potency on both ends plus the MP regeneration. Still, I find this ability just to be so satisfying. So I'm actually really looking forward to detonating the stars in that case. Oh, you still have Malefic 3 now. I forgot about that. And then Minor Arcane and Sleeve Draw looked pretty much the same. Let me see if the Lady and the Lord were changed. No, not really. Lady and the Lord remained the same from when I played them before. Yeah, okay. Just making sure all that was unchanged. All this, again, pretty much unchanged. Largese being where Sinistry's effect went, where Divine Seal's effect went, so we don't have to cover that a little bit later. And then for going into things here, I'm interested in seeing this, because this kind of, for me, it suffers from the same issue of Cure 1 and Cure 2, but at least I like that Lightspeed's recast, which is, what, 150 seconds or something like that? Where is Lightspeed? Lightspeed. Yeah, it's 150 seconds. I mean, bringing it down is nice when applicable, but I'm still not a big fan of being forced to Benefic 1, Benefic 2. But again, we need to see how much more you'll be using Benefic 1 and 2, and then we can judge the skill later on based on that. Moving over to Scholar. Now, Scholar, a lot of people are still talking about. massive nerfs to their AoE damage output, so probably going to be weaker now in terms of their dungeon outputs in general. I mean, you'll still be fine to run dungeons with a Scholar, but White Mage to me is still the clear, like, fastest dungeon running job, just with the sheer amount of, you know, shared healing and damage that they can get access to fairly easily, especially with their some of their new MP tools that they got. Otherwise, some of them MP costs, you know, Aetherflow's MP restoration brought down. That was something we knew from the Mediator as well. Ruin getting some potency increases. All the Fey Gauge things being added to their Aetherflow ability. Shadow Flares changes, which are the same for Summoner as well. Means you have a lot less uptime with it. And, you know, while it's easier to use, you won't be using Swiftcast on it anymore. I mean, it's way more punishing if someone moves out of it. But the potency increase on it is nice for the duration that it is available, but just you won't be having 100% uptime on that anymore. So keep that in mind as well. Broil, of course, and then Broil 2. Chain Stratagem, strong. Once every 2 minutes, though, so definitely got to be used. Definitely more of a boss thing, less of a thing that's, I guess, in dungeons. You'll be using it on every boss, but not effective in AoE packs, so Chain Stratagem, really a boss-killing ability, especially with some of the other changes that were done to stats. Ether Pact, pretty much the same. Fey Union. Yeah, this is the Order Fey Union, and this is actually Fey Union, which is a pretty strong heal. I think a lot of people will enjoy that. And they even buffed Fey Illumination. Oh, no, I'm sorry. They nerfed Fey Illumination, which means they have half of a Divine Seal, but only if they're using Eos. Kind of expected. And then Embrace had its potencies brought down on both the jobs. Crossroll stuff we already went over. And then Quickened Aetherflow. Still not a big fan of this, because 20% chance to reduce Aetherflow's recast by 10 seconds. You get 3 of those a minute. So, like, your odds of ever reducing it are so low. I don't know, it's just a very a lot of the healers got very unsatisfying final ones. This is, for me, one of the least satisfying ones. I find even the White Mage level 68 one and the Astral level 68 one to be far more, you know, effective in a sense, just because if you choose to, you can use those spells more frequently to proc it. This is still, you get 3 chances a minute, and then if nothing, it doesn't proc, it's just not a super satisfying. If you get all 3 procs, you're going to feel like a god, but we'll wait till we see the Reddit post on that. And we have White Mage. And then we have White Mage. White Mage, White Mage, White Mage. So the only thing I really saw was that they increased the odds of getting lilies for Cure 1 and Cure 2, which is nice. Again, if Cure 1 and Cure 2 end up getting used way more, it's still not that bad. I still don't find cooldown reduction for the lily system to be all that satisfying. That being said, oh, a 15% chance the spell's MP cost will cost half. Oh, Medica. It was fun to have that. Honestly, didn't even know it had that, to be honest. Totally didn't even know that. Totally didn't even know that. Alright, anything else here that I even want to bother with? Fluid Aura doesn't do damage anymore. Potency increases for some of their DPS skills. I think Arrow actually saw an increase as well. Yeah, 5 potency per tick. Cure 2 having the 100% chance to proc a Lily, so I hope there is, I really do hope, like, there's Cure potency increases here as well, which is totally welcome if they're going to be trying to focus on getting us to use Cure 1 and Cure 2. So I do appreciate that. I'll wait. I'll still reserve judgment on that sense, because, again, if Cure 2 ends up being a far more demanding skill to use, then Lilies go up in value. So I'll wait to see the fight design before I go into a White Mage trade again, but I'm still seeing a lot of White Mage not being super pleased about it. Arrow 2 having its duration brought up. Tetra, Thin Air is still fantastic, by the way. I love this ability. Just 0 MP cost for 12 seconds. Just think about that. If you end up using those Cure 2s and getting the Assize cooldown down by 20%, or getting the procs that for their final trait, the MP generation with that, plus having Thin Air every 2 minutes, pretty nice. At least it's pretty nice. Divine Benison hasn't changed much, uses your Lilies. And all Lilies lost. I can't deal with this confession thing, man. I'm still not a fan of it. Even if Cure 1 and Cure 2, the 20% chance kills me on confession stacks, because it's just still not, it's your final skill. I feel like you should have more effective use of it. 20% chance for you to even be able to use your level 70 skill every time you cast Cure 1 and Cure 2, and then it only has a 30-second duration on the confession stacks individually. Just not satisfying for me. But again, maybe it pans out better than it seems like it will. Of course, all the stone skin and stuff being gone, not much you're really going to do on that front. The full explanation of Lilies, and of course their final one, giving you the Asylum or Size recasts whenever you heal critical health with Cure 1 and Cure 2. Again, just not a fan of all the gates. 20% on a critical for these two spells only. So many gates. Just not a fan of it. So, again, hoping 4.01 to 4.05 that some things see change. I just don't find those to be very satisfying gameplay changes overall. All right, so we still got a lot more to go through. I might cut the video on tanks and healers and then do a separate one for the DPS just because this is going to take forever if we try to do it all in one video. So I'm going to make that a wrap for video number 1. I'm going to spend a little bit of time with my chat, answer some questions since I am doing my 24/7 live stream right now. We'll come back and we'll do the melee DPS and we'll do the DPS as the second video, and then that'll be a wrap. So anyway, I'm going to get back to hanging with my Twitch chat for a little bit. Thank you for watching this over on YouTube. Be sure to come join the 24/7 stream where myself, one of my mods, Tequila Shots, and my girlfriend will be taking shifts to play this game for the next 7 days straight. 24 hours, no downtime. Enjoy it. I will see you guys on the live stream, and until then, take care. All right, we good. We good. All right, let's go back to this for the time being then, since that's the major one. That's the countdown.